Hi guys, Nada here, and next to me I have another ASUS ROG monitor. So this is the Strix XG438Q monitor. As the name suggests, this is a 43-inch monitor that has 4K resolution. It has 120Hz refresh rate, which is really cool. It has a HDR 600 label, and it has FreeSync 2 technology. There's going to be another monitor released later this year, the XG43UQ, and that monitor is going to have an HDR 1000 label and probably some more bells and whistles, but we're going to talk about that one when the time comes. Now, this monitor is not cheap as you would expect. It is 1,200 euros here in the Netherlands or $1,100 in the US. So yeah, let's test it and see if it's worth considering. Let's go. This video is brought to you by the Corsair iQ465X RGB case that offers solid performance, but also a lot of RGB as it comes with 3 LL120 addressable RGB fans and an RGB controller by default. Check it out using the links in the description below. Now obviously I have to start by talking about the size of this thing. It is even wider than your typical 34 or 35 inch ultra wide, and it is a lot taller too, so it's definitely not your typical monitor. Now the large size and weight obviously limits what ASUS can actually do with the design of the stand. They went for their typical ROG metal stand, which does a great job at keeping the screen very steady on your desk, but obviously there is no way to swivel or rotate the monitor. You can actually tilt it a bit, but that is pretty much it. And if you want to, you can also VESA mount this monitor. I think they did a great job with visuals as well. It is not over the top, but it still clearly has that signature ROG design with a few nicer lines here and there. Most importantly, the build quality is really good, especially for a monitor of this size. There is no RGB in the frame itself, but you do get a little ROG logo projector separately. Now you can mount that projector in the back and project a logo onto the desk, like most of the ROG monitors do, but you can also just move it freely and use it as a wall or a ceiling projector if you want, and I really do like a bit of flexibility like this. Now this monitor has one DisplayPort 1.4 in the back and 3 HDMI 2.0 ports, so that should be plenty for most PCs and console owners. It comes with a USB hub, it has a 3.5mm mini jack input and a 3.5 headphone jack. It comes with two 10-watt built-in speakers as well that actually sound pretty decent. Normally I don't put much value into monitor speakers, but since this one tries to be a TV alternative as well, I think it's important that you can at least play a game or watch a series without cringing. Now, as usual with ASUS, the OSD controls are great. The menus make sense and they're very easy to navigate with a little joystick and the buttons that are easily recognizable, and you can do it without looking behind the screen. As you come to expect from ASUS, there are also typical crosshair and shadow boost features to enhance your gaming if you like that sort of thing as well. And the XG438Q also comes with full software control over the OSD, which is another great feature we've been seeing more recently. They also included a remote control for those of you that are considering this monitor as a TV alternative, but mind you, you're not going to be able to change channels with this remote control, only the monitor settings. But what's it like to game on? Now obviously again I need to talk about the size of this monitor because a 43-inch monitor on a desk is a bit of a complicated topic. On one hand, it's definitely an immersive experience having a screen so large, but on the other hand, depending on the game you're playing, it can be very hard to keep a good overview of what's actually going on. Now, I cannot objectively say it's great or bad to have a large monitor for gaming, it is very subjective, but from experience, a majority of people that tried it will say that they will prefer something a bit smaller. If you're trying to be competitive online, definitely. But even from a pure immersion point of view, something like an XG32VQR, which costs half this much, definitely offers more of a balanced experience both for gaming and all-around use. Now, if you do put it on your desk, I do think that it's missing a bit of a curve, but if you do like just sitting on the couch and gaming a bit further away from your screen, you will see this monitor shine. HDR performance, for example, is actually pretty decent. It is not the PG35VQ or OLED TV awesome, but it's definitely great for a monitor. Also, while it's far from the fastest gaming display on the market, I mean, even for a VA panel, it's on the slower end with a bit more ghosting than the most smaller VA options. The high refresh rate still gives it a smoother experience than on a typical 60 Hz panel. And then especially if you're using FreeSync or G-Sync. Now, it is not officially labeled G-Sync compatible, but in all our testing so far, we had zero problems using it with G-Sync on. So let's go over some of our standard test results. The XG438Q has a nice maximum brightness of just over 500 nits, which on a large monitor is definitely enough. Now the HDR mode brightness goes over 650 nits, which is comfortably over the HDR 600 label requirement, and as I said earlier, that is above average for an HDR monitor. I do wish the display could be dimmed a bit further though, because 100 nits minimum white brightness is a bit on the high side. The gamma result is pretty decent, the color temperature is pretty accurate, and the contrast is actually fantastic at 4700 to 1, and that is in SDR mode. The color calibration is also decent, a bit oversaturation here and there doesn't really hurt a gaming monitor, and the gray balance is actually excellent. Overall, the factory calibration of this monitor is really good. The uniformity is something that just seems hard to get right on a large VA panel, and the XG438Q is no exception here. In the worst spots, the brightness varies up to 20%, and that is something you can see on a completely white image. Keep in mind that this too isn't really a problem for gaming or even in various different things like videos and pictures, and something you can expect in most larger VA monitors, but it's not great for any critical creative work. Now there are some reasons that you would go for a 43-inch monitor. For example, for us personally here in the office, we actually use a 43-inch for testing purposes because you can combine the inputs and actually use picture-by-picture mode on your monitor and have 4 21.5-inch Full HD monitors in one, which is kind of cool and very useful. It saves us tons of time. But that is not why you would buy an ROG gaming monitor. This monitor is great if you don't plan on putting it on your desk, but actually plan on sitting a bit further away from it while gaming, watching Netflix, or whatever you plan to do. Because if you sit further away, 43-inch suddenly makes perfect sense because everything smaller than that would just be too small. At 43 inches and with a 4K resolution, this monitor should be as sharp as a typical 27-inch Quad HD screen, but it just isn't. It doesn't really look as crisp as I hoped it would when you get close to it, and that's very much noticeable in small fonts, and I found it distracting in Word documents, for example. Now, even though I can say it's fine and in gaming you will never notice it, I need to tell you that if you're serious about non-gaming things, there's simply better options for less money. The viewing angles are pretty good, there is no noticeable backlight bleed, and it's worth pointing out that since this is a matte display, it does offer some advantages when it comes to not reflecting light versus your typical TV gaming experience. Overall, this Strix XG438Q monitor has a lot of things to love, but also a lot of things to consider before buying it. So if you plan on using it as a monitor on your desk, you need to consider the size, you need to consider the lack of curve, which is definitely something you will miss when you sit close by to it. There is a lack of sharpness, especially when it comes to small fonts, and the uniformity is not so great. And at the end of the day, it is much more reasonable to go for a more balanced option, like a faster 32-inch monitor that is going to cost you half this much. Not to mention that you will get much better frame rates on a Quad HD monitor. However, if you do want to use it as a TV replacement, I do have to say that 120 Hz refresh rate is smoother than even a low input lag TV, and you add to that FreeSync and G-Sync support as well as a very decent HDR experience. Now, OLED TVs are going to do HDR better, and if you look at some entry-level LG OLED TVs, the price is not that much higher. So, this monitor is not going to be for everyone like the PG279Q, for example, but if you do have a limitation when it comes to space and you're in a small apartment or a bedroom and you do want to combine some PC gaming and console gaming and some Netflix and TV watching, then this monitor is definitely a viable option. Now, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this monster of a monitor and about this review. Don't forget to subscribe, give me thumbs up, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye!